the top of the home page for the bar. By contrast, PetSmart.com, www.petsmart.com, considers the scan alert hacker safe trust mark so important that they chose to display it in the upper left corner, the most prominent and powerful position on any web page. See Figure 4.7. This area is usually reserved for the company's logo. In this case, PetSmart compensated for the change by displaying their logo in a very large size and centered on the header. This instantly transmits a two-part message to the visitor: "We're safe to buy from We're PetSmart." See example on page 117. PetSmart. If possible, the safe shopping and privacy symbols should be the leading ones in their category, otherwise, there is an additional momentary pause and possible confusion, as the visitor evaluates the validity and credibility of the less familiar trust symbol itself. Validation and credibility risk reducers lower your anxiety levels. It is also possible to raise your affinity level with validation and credibility indicators. These increase your affinity for the website or product. In effect, risk reducers make you feel less worse, while evidence of validation makes you feel more better. Both are based on transferring goodwill from other people or companies to yours. No one wants to be the fool who fell for a ruse and had to deal with the consequences. Validation tells people that others have previously done something similar and had a good outcome. In effect, they create social proof to back up your company's claims. Examples of validation include Industry or Media Awards, Editor's Choice, fastest growing company media coverage, mentions in mainstream press, websites, or blogs, inclusion in industry analyst reports, endorsements from individuals and associations, partnerships with other respected companies, studies and surveys, market share, customer satisfaction, client lists and logos, case studies, user testimonials, and review site tuners.com. Client SF Video specializes in a large-scale DVD, CD, and video duplication. The company, whose landing page is illustrated in Figure 4.8, is well established and has worked with over 2,400 clients, including some of the top brands in the world. By adding a prominent area with client logos to their lead form, they were able to noticeably boost their form fill conversion rate. See example page 119. Transacting. Even if you have correctly done everything up to this point, remember that not everyone will act at this stage. They may not be able to afford your product. They may want to continue their search for alternatives. They may need the approval of another person, such as a coworker or spouse. They may not have the proper payment method or the necessary supporting information to complete the transaction. Some may simply want to sleep on the decision before making it. But let's assume that someone has finally built up enough desire to act. What is the best way to get that person to complete the transaction? Boxed content. The rules of web action: get out of the visitor's way. Make it easy for the visitor. Don't surprise the visitor. And boxed. Get out of the visitor's way. The most criminal waste of attention at this point is focusing your visitors on unnecessary tasks or distractions. One of the most egregious is making them register before checking out. In forced registration, visitors are required to give their email address and create a password before buying something. The merchant does this ostensibly to help the consumer on subsequent visits. The checkout information, such as shipping address and payment method, is stored. On their next visit, they are asked to enter the email and password, and the stored data is auto-populated in the checkout process forms for them. Figure 4.9 shows the first page of the checkout process at overstock.com. This registration requirement is particularly confusing. You are asked for your email address first. Then you are asked if you are a new customer. Despite the fact that most people are likely to be new customers, the default radio button checked is the second choice: no, I am a returning customer. If you investigate the alternative answer, yes, I am a new customer, you are confronted with the cryptic parenthetical remark: you'll create a new password here. Where exactly is this here? There is no apparent place to click or enter the password. Example page 121. If you actually select the Yes, I am a new customer radio button, then the form reconfigures, as shown in Figure 4.10. Two new fields are created below the new customer radio selection, along with a checkbox for participation in email special offers. The password entry field for returning customers disappears. My guess is that software developers instead of usability advocates lead the way in creating this conceptual mess. It smacks of engineering if then logic, without any concern for the anxiety level created for the visitor. This process is confusing because it entwines data entry for new and returning customers. It also hides important information with no indication of how it can be revealed. When the form reconfigures, it is a total surprise to the visitor, violating the "Don't Surprise the Visitor" rule described below. It also creates unnecessary work for everyone by requiring a reconfirmation of the password. Only a few people will misspell the password that they had intended to enter. Even if they do, this can be easily dealt with by sending them an email with a temporary password after their login attempt fails. Instead, extra data entry is forced on all potential customers. Registration on your site may be a minor advantage to a small percentage of your visitors, but it is guaranteed to be an annoyance and hindrance to many more. If someone really wants the convenience of not having to frequently re-enter their personal data, they can set up a central user authentication account that works across multiple websites, or activate their web browser's automatic form fill capability. Many people may have no intention of transacting with you again, and will not appreciate the extra work required to register. Others may object on privacy grounds to giving you their email address, since it is not an absolute requirement for completing an online transaction. Registration should never be forced, and should be de-emphasized in most cases. Even seemingly minor transactional friction, such as filling out the email and password, may significantly lower your conversion rates. If you must have the registration and login options first, the alternative mockup that I have created in Figure 4.11 illustrates a cleaner approach. Note the following differences from Overstock's actual version: self-selection. As discussed in the previous chapter, it is important to clearly identify important user classes, in this case, new and returning customers, and to provide the correct tasks for each one. Emphasis: most screen real estate supports new customers, usually the largest group by far. Within the new customer group, the main option is to proceed without registering. Registration that is not forced. New users can proceed immediately to the rest of the checkout process. The registration option describes the benefit of taking this step for faster future checkouts. Visible choices: there are no hidden context-sensitive parts on the page. What you see is what you get. This lowers visitor anxiety. Minimal data entry: the password for new customer registrations is entered only once. An even better approach would be to remove the optional new customer registration requirement from this page altogether. The same information can be collected easily near the end of the checkout process. At that stage, visitors have significantly more invested in the transaction. They are less likely to abandon the process and more likely to supply the requested additional information. Another common tactic during the transaction is to introduce last-minute upsells, cross-sells, or special offers. This is fine if it is handled before the checkout step, e.g., by displaying accessories on a product detail page in an online catalog. However, during the checkout process, such tactics should be carefully considered. Usually there is a trade-off between higher value per transaction and lower overall conversion rates. The method by which a secondary offer is presented greatly affects its potential impact. Efforts should be made to minimize disruption and surprise. The example from McAfee Incorporated illustrates this point. After I started my checkout with a single item in my cart, I was presented with the pop-up window shown in Figure 4.12. I was forced to deal with the upsell offer presented before continuing the checkout. Other examples involve co-registration or co-reg for short. This is a common online practice. During a transaction, you are invited, usually by simply checking a box, to participate in other often unrelated services or offers from co-marketing partners of the website. If you opt in, some of the information from your original transaction is then forwarded to the co-reg partner for future promotional emails. Many co-reg programs are thinly disguised ways to gather and sell your email to others for the purposes of emailing and sometimes spamming you. Since you are piggybacking the co-registration on your own transaction, ultimately the impact of this will rub off on your own brand and credibility. Your primary transaction presumably has a lot more value than the incremental money you can make from co-registrations. So you must be careful about the potential risks such as lower conversion rates or damage to your reputation. It is rarely a good idea to transfer some of the trust that you have built up enough to actually complete the desired conversion action to another company. As suggested earlier, if you are considering upsells or co-registration, you should at least test the impact on your revenue per visitor. Example page 124. Make it easy for the visitor. One of the keys to making the user experience easier is to remove choice and simplify the transaction process. An easy way to do this is to change the navigation information available on the page. The main menu that is used during the earlier stages of the decision process is no longer applicable during the action stage. The top of the home page for the Barnes & Noble website is shown in Figure 4.13. It includes many navigation options in the top header and the side column on the left of the page. Many of these links and search tools are necessary for the shopping process.